Is the world collapsing around us, or does it just feel like it sometimes? Let's be a little bit more serious video, I think, most likely. So I want to open it up with a little bit more fun with background with animals and stuff like that. But, it seems like over the past few months especially, with some of the biggest YouTubers that we've known for years leaving the platform, and the intenseness of the political scene and the election coming up in 2024, that's getting wilder and crazier, and just left and right stuff's happening. The world feels like it's on fire constantly. It feels like winter isn't a thing anymore. Like, it just feels like over the past 2 decades, really, but especially the past few years, things have really kind of hit a rough spot. And I want to talk about it a little bit because I don't think I'm the only one that feels this way. At least I hope not. I mean, I think from what I've heard and read, like a lot of people in my millennials, I'm an older millennial, but I'm a millennial. And Gen Z, like the younger generations, you all are feeling it, right? Because things are getting kind of crazy out there. Let's talk about it in this video. So I typically avoid talking about politics and that kind of stuff on this channel. In the past, I've touched on it from time to time. I've given my opinion on certain things. But as a general rule, it's usually a pretty controversial thing to get into. And I don't want to cover too much with politics, although I will be talking about that in this video, because it's something that's really been bothering me lately. I've found over the past couple of months especially, my anxiety has been a lot higher than normal. I've hit bouts of, my depression at times has I've hit my low points more often than normal. And I've been struggling to kind of find a reason why. There's times that I'll turn to, trying to find something to blame, or trying to find, I'll put up a video on YouTube that doesn't perform like I think it should, and I'll be like, well, that's why I'm upset. And I know at the core that that's not really the issue. Realistically, it's this concept of just like hopelessness and feeling like we really don't have much to look forward to in the long run. As a millennial, as somebody born in 1986, which sounds ancient to some people out there, I know, but I've lived through some pretty crazy shit in my life. Up to and including, I watched the Twin Towers fall on 9/11, and I was kind of like just getting out into the real world when the financial crisis of 2008 hit, although I was kind of shielded from that because I was in the Army, so I didn't really have it as bad as somebody who maybe wasn't in that situation and had a real, regular job out in the real world, So, but I've seen all this stuff happen, and we've gone through all of this stuff. And it just feels like it's one of those deals where no matter how good things seem like they should be or could be, no matter how good you want to think of the future, it's hard to really have any kind of faith or trust in the fact that the future is going to go anywhere. I struggle with depression and anxiety. I've struggled with those for years. It's part of having Asperger's, which is something that I found out a few years ago that I have. And, since getting that diagnosis, I've been able to kind of cope with things a little bit better. But recently it's been really hard to think about because, since COVID, the pandemic hit in 2020, things shut down. I was actually one of the happier ones to be working from home, and I'm I don't want to say antisocial, but I'm an introvert. I prefer to be in my own little space and have my own little. I like to go out in pockets, and then have some interaction with people in little bits, because that's where I do best. So having about a year or so where I didn't really leave the house at all. My wife would go to the store, and other than that, we didn't go anywhere. We stayed, we limited our contact outside the house, and I was happy. The restrictions started to lift, and we started going back out into the world and finding a new normal. But ever since then, it feels like things have just been kind of bleh. It's not that it was great before the pandemic. Ever since 2016, really, ever since Trump got elected the first time, things were kind of iffy. But Biden won in 2020. The economy seemed like things were going to get back on track once the pandemic was over. But they haven't really. And then this war in Ukraine and the war in the Middle East now with Israel and Palestine. And now the 2024 election, where it's looking like we're going to have a repeat of what happened in 2020. And it's terrifying for me because, and I know for a lot of people out there, we feel like we have no control. You feel like the world's running you by. And it's run by these old farts that realistically should have been gone a long time ago. And we're all just kind of struggling to hopefully get by while these guys relive their glory days of the Cold War. Like, that's what it feels like to me. I'm sitting back and I'm watching and I'm seeing this past weekend as I'm filming this. This is February 13th. It's late on the day. Okay, it's almost Valentine's Day. But this past weekend, we had the report come out about Biden where they said, he was a nice old man, or however the hell they put it, right? And he had memory problems. And then in the same weekend, you've got Donald Trump sitting there disparaging Nikki Haley's husband for being deployed. How dare he be deployed in defense, as part of the military, and then threatening to basically sick Russia on other countries in Europe. And it's like, what's going to happen when the election happens? If there's a real possibility that Donald Trump could become the president again. And I don't know what to do with that. And, I've had some experience with people in the past. My sister's one that has said in the past, well, I'm not, you shouldn't worry about things that you can't control. It's outside of your control, so don't worry about it. The problem is it directly impacts me and everybody else. We're in this situation where essentially we've been told, this is who you have to vote for. This is who's going to be, it pisses me off in a way. It irritates me. It frustrates me because you have, on the one hand, you got Joe Biden, who way too old to be running for president, honestly. And he is got this complex of only I can fix this. I'm the only one. Rather than having a Democratic primary and saying, let's let everybody kind of pan out and see how things go. He's like, nope, I'm the only one that can do this. And then on the other hand, you've got Donald Trump coming in there and saying, well, I want to be a dictator and I love all these strong men over here. I love Putin. And, so you've got all of these people and it's these two guys that neither one of them is qualified to be president anymore. On top of everything else that's going on in the world, I can't. Even a couple of years ago, I was making six figures at a job, and I couldn't afford to buy a house because interest rates. It wasn't feasible. Not just interest rates, the houses we were looking at were all way above market value. We've got that. Got a situation where the job market sucks. If you've been out there trying to get a job, you're not the only one trying to get a job in a market that just absolutely sucks. And it's like, when do we get our turn? When is our chance to take control of our own future? As millennials, as Gen Z's coming up now, my kids, I don't even know what generation my kids would be. Maybe Gen Z. I don't know the ages necessarily. I think my kids are older Gen Z. But like the world, the economy, everything, it's terrifying. What are the next few years going to be like? What do we have to look forward to in a situation where we're just electing older and older people. They don't want to give up the power. They don't want to give up. They want to sit there and they want to say, we've been doing it since the 60s. We're going to do it the same way. And who the hell does Donald Trump think he is? Make America great again? When the hell was America great before? Not saying that America hasn't been great. Okay. In America, I get the thing. Okay. America's not perfect. America's got its flaws. I love my country. I served my country in the military, but it has its flaws. We can always improve. And the only thing you can do is sit there and say, let's try to get better. Let's do the best we can. But who the hell are you to stand up there and say, we have to make America great again by going backwards? Things weren't that great for a lot of people in the 60s, the 70s, the 50s. Sure, they were great for some people, but there's a lot of people that were screwed over during those times. And you can't make it better by remaking the Cold War. You've got people like Vladimir Putin, who dude's way past his prime. He's struggling to hang on to power. You got people that are running China, acting like assholes. You've got Biden standing up there saying, I'm the only one that can solve all the problems. When do we get a chance as the generation that has to deal with the fallout of this? You've screwed us over in the housing, with the housing. You've screwed us over with the economy. Inflation is higher than wages. My parents could buy a house off of one job. My dad was making $50,000 a year when my parents bought a house, a good sized house in a nice area. You can't buy that house anymore if you're making anything less than $200,000 a year. And half of those houses aren't even available anymore because companies are coming in and buying them up to rent out because millennials don't want to buy. Yes, we do. We want to buy houses. It's ridiculous that you can't make it by on a 40-hour work week. It's ridiculous that you can't make it by with the working your ass off and struggling to get by and giving yourself to a company, working hard for a company, and then getting laid off because that company hired too many people. That was my problem when I got laid off a couple years ago. It was because the company had overestimated their value by $40 billion. Like, these companies are screwing us over. The government doesn't know what the hell they're doing, and they're screwing us over. What's the solution? And it feels hopeless. It feels like, what can we do? And so I don't want to leave this on just, doom and gloom and horrible bad stuff. What I really want to focus on is maybe some solutions, some ideas. I've been preaching this to my kids, and the reason why I'm making this video in the first place and why I'm talking about this stuff is because honestly, we can't sit down. We can't avoid it. We've got to stop sitting by and saying, oh, it's exhausting. I don't feel like talking about it anymore. We have to step up. We have to say something. We have to do something. We've got to get younger people in office. We've got to get younger people involved. I'm 37 years old, about to be 38. If you're in your late 30s, down to your 20s and your late teens, look at ways to get involved. You can run for office. You can run for the House of Representatives for in your district at 25 years old. Get involved in local politics. Speak out. Use platforms like Facebook, TikTok. Instead of using TikTok for stupid little viral dances, how about we start focusing on using TikTok, using Facebook, using YouTube, Twitter? I refuse to call it X. Screw you, Elon. Use all of those things to make a difference and actually speak out and actually go out there and change the world, because we can do it. It's been done before, and it's something that honestly, we've got to just stop sitting by. We've got to stop saying, oh, I don't feel like talking about that. I'm so tired. I'm exhausted of hearing it. The news is overwhelming. Guess what? until we get out there and change something and make something better, it's going to sound much worse, you know. And realistically, and I'm going to say this now because I don't consider myself a Republican anymore. I don't consider myself a Democrat. I'm an independent. Honestly, I've voted Democrat in the past couple of elections, but go out and vote for people like Nikki Haley. You know, everybody says, well, she doesn't have a chance. Republicans don't. Yes, she does. She does have a chance. If you're registered as a Democrat, if you're registered as an independent in a lot of states, you can switch your registration or you can vote in an open primary. Get off your ass, go to the polls, vote, and keep Trump off the damn ballot. It isn't that hard. You know, speak up, talk to people, get the voice out there. We got to do something different. Something's got to change. And you know, it's too late to get somebody younger for this presidential election, but we need to start speaking up. We need to start becoming more active and being more vocal. I'm planning on doing that. It's probably going to cost me some people in the long run, but I've got to do it because my kids in 20 years, you know, my oldest daughter is 17. She's going to be 18 this year. She's going to vote in her first presidential election. 20 years after I voted in my first presidential election. And in 20 years, when she's voting in the presidential election in 20 years from now, I don't want her to be in a bad situation, I don't want to look back and say, man, I wish I would have said something then. I wish I would have spoken up sooner. You know, and I want my kids to be able to go out there as adults in the next few years and be able to have something, to be able to look forward to something, to have something positive. And the only way I can do that is by speaking out and making videos like this, talking about it, getting political a little bit here and there. Look, not every one of my videos is going to be political. I'm going to make more that are going to be talking about this stuff as we get closer to the election because it's important, because I feel like we all should be doing this. We all should be taking a stand and saying, this is not okay. Running two old white guys that are 80 or near 80 for the highest office in the land, our proverbial leader, is not okay. It's not an age discrimination thing either. It's a matter of fact, a thing where they are out of touch. They are so out of touch, both of them, because they haven't lived what we're living. They don't know what we're going through because they can hear all the stories in the world, but unless you've actually gone through it, unless you've actually lived it, you don't know what it's like. And that's why we need to get vocal. We need to start talking about it. You know, and be respectful. All right, if you're going to comment, I hope if you made it this far in the video, it's mostly because you either empathize or thought, you know, like something I said, or you know, want to have a discussion. Be respectful in the comments. I do remove comments from people that are just outright breaking terms of service or being assholes. All right, that's just the way it is. But I want to have the conversation down in the comments, over on Discord, all of that kind of stuff. And like I said, I'm not going to make every video like this, but I really had to get this off my chest. This was something that's been bothering me, and I really wanted to talk about. So I'll post the Patreon up here, Patreon, if you want to go over there. I'm doing this full time, more or less, right now because I'm working on a degree, and I've got a bunch of other stuff. So Patreon, that helps out a lot. Just watching the video this far, liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing the video, all of that kind of stuff really helps me out, and you know, give me some ideas of other things you'd like to hear, and be vocal. You know, get out there and be a little bit more talkative and be a little bit more vocal, and don't be afraid to have discussions. Politics, religion, that kind of stuff should not be taboo topics. There should be things that we can talk about as adults. You know, there should be things that we can, if any idea, should be open for scrutiny. You know, don't attack the person, but the ideas should be open for scrutiny, and we should be able to pick apart an idea down to its bones, and if it's a good idea, it'll hold up to scrutiny. If it's not a good idea, it'll collapse, and we need to move on to the next thing. So that's all I got for this one. It's a little bit longer, a little bit more intense, but I feel really strongly about this stuff. So I want to thank you all if you made it this far. Like, subscribe, like I said earlier, all that good stuff. And yeah, that's all I got. I will thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.